Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast, episode number 18. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
Hey folks, this is Jim Kruger from Antleritis.com, and you're listening to the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast.
Welcome to the show, everybody. This is Jay Scott, your host of the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast, and we're psyched to be back here again talking about deer hunting in the deer woods, and I am here with my very good friend Dusty Phillips from Ohio, our field correspondent. Dusty, what is happening?
It's starting to get busy in the woods here. You know, the deer are moving. I was out and about this morning, and the activity is picked up. Crops are, they're getting knocked down as we speak. The cold weather's kicked in, and obviously it has for you guys too. Checking out Chubby Tines, some guys in New Hampshire area are definitely seeing a lot more deer than they were last week. Things are starting to heat up. What's going on in your neck of the woods?
Same thing here, man. It got real frigid last night. We've had a couple frosts recently, and last night was another one of them. Hearing some reports from guys, especially up in northern New Hampshire, they're starting to see some buck activity, borderline fighting type stuff. So, it's really starting to kick off. The cold weather's kicking in. The moon's starting to come into the right, lighting and all that kind of good stuff that brings the hunt together. I was outside today, had a sick kid today, so I didn't actually get out to hunt, but just spent a lot of time outside. I could definitely sense that those things were starting to develop into the big woods. So I'm gearing up to transition out of that late summer, early season hunt into the real hunting that I love to do outside this time of year. It's
definitely come upon us.
It is. Yep. Now I have somebody, waiting for us, Dusty, who is, do you use scents a lot when you hunt?
Yeah, sure do. It's, big. It's big here in Ohio, definitely right. Some, doe and heat, some buck urine, yep. It's something that we commonly use here.
It's something we have used probably our whole hunting careers. And I've always been curious about it, but there's so many to pick from. When you go into a store, you go into a Walmart or Dick's or any place that sells sporting goods, there's so many deer scents out there. You can get confused.
It's flooded the market, and around here, we find local scent makers that seem to be the most success.
Yep. It's a multi-million-dollar market. To think that you can sell doe pee or deer pee, it's a multi-million-dollar market. It's kind of interesting.
And the smell is not too pleasant either.
It's awful.
So,
it's awful.
A lot of money for a terrible smell.
Absolutely. It's kind of, it blows my mind that something that can smell that bad can sell for that much.
I'm telling you, you wonder if it's, the real smell, or is it just something in the bottle that's flavored?
Exactly.
But I think with a local scent maker, that's, it's 100% real deal.
Well, this is kind of what I'm curious about. Like, how do I know if I'm using the good one? How do I know? I don't. You can read every single label. You still, I'll pick this one. That's how you're going to decide what to pick if you don't know otherwise.
Right. And, I think we need somebody on here that's going to testimonial their product and tell us what's going on with deer scents.
I agree. I want an expert, and tell you what, we've got an expert with us today.
And awesome. Let's give him a call.
All right. So here's who we're going to bring on the show. His name is Dean Vanier. He is from Lebanon, New Hampshire, and he is from Northwoods Common Sense. And I have actually tried this product. I am thoroughly impressed. So, let's bring Dean on air.
Let's do it. Give him a call.
Dean, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, Jason. Thanks for having me.
We're psyched to have you, and I'm joined with my good friend Dusty Phillips from Ohio. He's our field correspondent from Chubby Tines Outdoors. What's going on, Dusty?
Not a whole lot. Welcome aboard, Dean. Dean's with Northwoods Common Sense, deer scent. And, Dean, we look forward to talking with you. And, we're going to kind of pick your brain about deer scents that, you got on the market. What kind of product you got going on?
Exactly.
Yeah, well, I've been doing it for a long time, over 30 years now, and a lot of details, and happy to answer any questions you folks might have.
That'd be great.
I don't know about you, Dusty, but I go into the store, I go to Dick's or wherever, and I'm sorting through all the different scents that are there, and it's kind of overwhelming these days.
There is a lot of variety, and it's we're going to pick through Dean here and see what's the best variety, the best time of year, the proper techniques of putting the product out, and that's kind of why we contacted Dean. And Dean, we are definitely going to have your brain thinking tonight.
Well, I have added that I could use something competitive here. It's
right.
Been a great deer season so far. The temperatures are dropping. The rut's just starting to kick in. So whatever questions you guys might have, I hope I can answer them.
Excellent. Now, Dean, you are in my home state of New Hampshire, and that's kind of how I found you. I found you at a Fish and Game Expo one year, and I picked up you were at the end of the table at the New Hampshire Fish and Game Expo, and you're set up. And I said, well, I've been trying scents for years, have had zero luck. And I pick up a bottle of one of your scents. I forget which one. It was a few years ago. And I haven't forgotten you since, because you've led me to some of the most successful kills that I've ever had.
Well, first of all, congratulations. Scents are merely a tool, but it also takes the skill of the hunter to use those tools correctly. And if you put the two together, it can be a deadly combination, and it could be consistent as well.
Excellent. I'm going to share with you my two stories that I have for shooting a couple of good deer. One in particular was just a great hunt, and it was and some other interesting perspectives that I've had using your scents. But what I'd like to do first off, Dean, is just learn a little bit about you. Where are you from?
I was born in the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont, about 10 miles off the Canadian border. I started chasing white-tailed deer through the fields. I mean, literally, I was infatuated by them. Watching them at about 11 years old. Picked up a bow and was climbing a tree at about 13. Passed my hunter's safety course. And that's where it all began. I started trapping at an early age, and coyote and fox. And I thought about it, and I said, boy, I love deer hunting so much. I wonder if you could do the same thing with whitetails. You could, you're using a coyote scent to draw coyotes or fox scent and to bring fox in. Why wouldn't it work with deer? Now, this is in 1973. Which is a little, I hate to date myself, but I guess I'm qualified to do so. That's kind of where it all started, making my own earth apple and cover scents, and all of these were common scents of the Northwoods, and that's where the name Northwoods common scents came from.
Gotcha. And all right, so you're in the Northwoods. The Northeast is basically where you came from.
That's correct.
And you started playing with some scents at a very young age. What brought you from playing with scents to opening a business?
Well, what it was I really never had anybody teach me. I mean, I yanked on every green plaid jacket, red plaid jacket, and, got my hat knocked off a few times for asking questions and reading everything that I learned. And I started becoming very successful. In fact, what happened was, instead of seeing does, I started seeing more buck. And I had to attribute it to what I was doing, through mock scrapes and drag rags and stuff like this. And I was shooting more deer and seeing more buck. And I said, why not share this? It had nothing to do on the monetary side. It still isn't. It's just a passion, for the outdoors and understanding how the whitetail, communicate.
Gotcha. Dusty, what kind of questions have you loaded up here?
Just give us a rundown of what you guys do there at Northwoods Common Sense. You're showing that you have 4 particular products, and give us kind of the beginning of the season, what products that you offer to get out in the woods to get things rolling. Let's say kind of mid-fall, almost getting to the point where the rut's being thought about for the deer. How do you get started, and what does your products do to help a hunter get started in making mock scrapes and that nature?
I'm a three-season hunter. I mean, the full season, starting in New Hampshire here, September 15th through December 15th. And what hunters have to remember is that the rut is a progressive situation. The pre-rut doesn't start at a certain time and go into the full rut and then go to the post-rut all of a sudden. Everything is very gradual. It's kind of like spring turns to summer, summer turns to fall, and fall turns to winter. And so you have to acknowledge that initially. Typically we have 4 scents. That's doe, urine, buck with tarsal, and doe and heat. And what I do is during the early bow season, I use doe urine as a cover scent instead of fox. Deer are very social animals. They tend, if you see one doe, usually you'll see two. If you see two, you probably see three. I also start using buck urine. And the reason that people really don't catch on, this is the best kept secret. And I don't know why. It's taken a long time for people and biologists and researchers to figure this out. But the bucks are bachelored up. And as soon as you introduce a new guy on the block, everybody wants to know who he is. I've shot a lot of buck that way, and we're talking, everything from the first day of bow season, September 15th, right straight through, as things start to pick up, the pre-rut, in mid to late October. So that's kind of how that works. And now how I start incorporating the rutting sense, that being buck with tarsal and doe and heat, is, as I said, this is a progressive situation where the estrogen in the does is increasing gradually and the testosterone in the bucks are increasing gradually. A little bit of doe and heat to my doe urine and buck with tarsal to my buck urine. So what you're putting out is you're basically duplicating what is happening exactly in the white-tailed deer woods. These deer are progressing through the rut, and you're kind of playing Mother Nature and joining them. And it works extraordinary because there's nothing on the market like that. You're basically following your own rules. And it's amazing how effective it can be.
That's excellent. Okay, whenever you're talking about the doe urine, we're in early fall, pre-rut area. What's the proper techniques on putting down some doe urine and buck urine as far as your product? Give us some kind of a technique that you put that on the ground to get this attention that you're talking about. It sounds like if you get the right combination, it really is effective product.
Well, and what you're doing is, I use the term virtual whitetail. What you're doing is you're inserting a virtual white-tailed deer into the deer woods to make that deer believe that there is or there was another deer there. I mean, that sounds a little complicated, but that's exactly what you're doing. When
The virtual deer, I like that. Introducing the virtual deer.
And it is, and we're working on a patent for that to move forward with that concept. But if typically what I'll do is I'll use doe urine on my rubber boots and I'll spray the ground before. Keep your boots in a box in the back of your pickup. Don't fill up your truck with fuel while you've got your rubber boots on. It's critical. But what I'll do, and I did this morning, except now we're approaching the pre-rut is starting to kick in very well. The bucks are sparring very intensely. And I used buck urine this morning, and these deer they followed me right in, just very curious as to what kind of a buck I was or where I was headed. But that's how I usually do it. I'll spray it on the ground, and I'll grind my boots into it and cover the top and the bottom with the dirt and the leaves, and off I go. And like I said, you're inserting a virtual deer into the deer woods. And again, they're very social animals. Now, as far as mock scrapes are concerned, we have what's called a scent holster, which allows you to carry your scent on your side. You don't spill it in your pack or what have you. I got to throw the plug in, but the point is it works phenomenal. Yep. And you can actually open up a mock scrape. It's critical to have a licking branch over the top of that mock scrape. And literally in less than a minute, you can spray doe urine and buck urine into that scrape. And again, you're playing Mother Nature here. And that is the mating process of the whitetail. The buck will open up the scrape. The female will indicate if she's ready through her urine. and then the buck will proceed to down or move on to another area where there's a doe that's ready to stand.
Dean, I had a couple of questions I wanted to kind of cover here. You're in the pre-rut now. I mean, just kind of dumbing it down. How important is scent, period?
Well, you know, I've spoken to some great hunters, and it's not, I don't think it's as important as doing your homework is concerned. As I said before, scent is merely just a tool. You know, it's just a tool in your toolbox to help increase your odds of success. The thing about utilizing calls or using scent is you're actually communicating with these animals. So you get to see exactly what they're doing. It's a good example is you see all this stuff on TV. Most of it's kind of I hate to say it, off the charts a little bit because, you know, they've got 15 or 20 rack buck on a large parcel of property, and they get to choose which one they want, when they want, or what have you. Here in New England, we don't have that luxury. You get to see how deer respond with each other. When you're using scent, you're communicating with the animals, and it's when you don't necessarily have to shoot a deer to beat them. I've passed up several deer this year, and if I would have wanted to harvest one, I certainly could have. I consider that beating them, and it was fun watching the whole scenario pan out. And but how important is it? It's not critical, and I never would portray it as being so. But it's a lot of fun to utilize those tools, and the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Gotcha. Is scent one of those things that's going to make you a better hunter if you already have some skill set in place?
I think that's like asking someone if they use a rifle, will it make them a better hunter? If they use a tree stand, will it make them a better hunter? I would say yes. Utilizing all of your tools appropriately is going to make you a better hunter. Paying attention to details is going to make you a better hunter. Scouting is going to make you a better hunter. Knowing what you're using and why you're using it is critical, and those are well explained on my website as well.
Okay. Let's get into some of that a little bit. You've got 4 different scents that you make, correct?
Yes, so the deer make it, yes.
Okay. Oh, the deer make. You don't make it, but you bottle it.
Yes.
And sell it. Take us through the scent number 1. Let's go through a round of what the scents are that you have and what to do with each.
The doe urine, again, is deer are very social animals. I use it as a cover scent on my rubber boots and going to and from my stands. I also use it early in the year. I've opened up scrapes as soon as late August, put cameras on them, and I'll utilize a little bit of doe urine in that as well. So it makes a great cover scent and a great attractant.
Okay, so this is the doe urine you're talking about.
Just the regular doe urine, yes.
Okay, and you said you've used it as early as August.
Yeah, not hunting, just experimenting and putting a camera on it and kind of watching how deer respond to it. If you were to go ahead, factually, many times before, in September, I've experimented and I've used doe and heat, and for some reason the guys don't seem to mind it, but the girls slip a gear. The does just know that clock is not correct. It's just not the right time, and they know the difference. And of course, when the does are upset, the boys are upset, and so you have to try to keep the woods calm as you possibly can. So as far as that is concerned, you can go ahead and use that product. And I don't have anything to say either way about any of the products at some of these big box stores. I just know that we cater exclusively to mom and pop shops, probably simply because, number one, we can't keep up. And number two, it gives them the opportunity to compete with the box stores because they can make a little bit off of it, and they're talking to real people, real hunters, and they've got a lot of real good stories to tell.
Gotcha. So you've got so that's just the basic doe urine.
That's just the doe.
Okay. What's the next scent that you have?
Probably the most underrated, without a question in my mind. And I'll give Deer and Deer Hunting magazine a plug. It's a great magazine. It's probably the most informative deer hunting magazine out there. They do a lot of great research, and a lot of highly qualified people. I'm a deer hunter, I'm not a biologist, but they have some really great, talented biologists in there that do the research. And this last month, their article was on, and what they were saying is that buck is just, I think it was up to 90% of the scrapes they opened up with buck urine were revisited by another buck. And I've been saying this for probably 15 years. Without a question, it's probably the most underrated, and people don't quite understand, the hunters don't understand quite why, because I want a buck, so I'm going to put an attractant like a doe out there. Well, early in the season, the bucks only care about who the competition is because they got to figure out who's going to step up to the plate and who the competition is. So that's why buck urine becomes very, very, I can't say extremely effective. Right now, here we are, the 23rd of October, and things are picking up, and that's what worked for me this morning with my fixed pointer.
Okay.
In Deer and Deer Hunting magazine last month, they did a survey on mock scrapes. And I think it was upwards of almost 90% of the mock scrapes they opened up with buck urine were revisited by other bucks, as opposed to, believe it or not, even doe and heat. And then, of course, when you're utilizing doe and heat, you're in the chase phase, as opposed to the chase phase being the peak of the rut, as opposed to the pre-rut, or I call the scrape phase.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's, I didn't catch the article in the magazine, but, it's a major part of your success is knowing when and how to properly use any kind of deer attractant, deer scent, and in particular for you, you're selling a product, so you've got to know what's going on there, and that's what it's all about.
It's mission critical. If you're not sure, like I said, you can go to my website and I go into detail and understanding the difference between the pre-rut, the peak rut, and the post-rut, and understanding those differences and hunting them accordingly is going to give you a big jump on the deer and certainly other hunters.
Gotcha.
Right. Let me ask a quick question here. How many times have you been told that somebody's told you that, I think I messed up. I put out the wrong scent at the wrong time?
It happens a lot, especially at some of the bigger shows that we're at, and of course, people always want to pick your brain and that kind of thing. It's really funny because as soon as you say something, they're like, aha, now I know what I did.
Right.
And I think I mentioned it to Jason. I mean, if you go introducing doe and heat into, late September, even early October, the guys don't so much mind it, but the does really slip a gear and they're not happy with it. They know the clock's not right at that time yet. And,
right.
But it happens a lot. The biggest questions that we usually have are, my bucks are nocturnal. And, what am I going to do? I know he's right there. I've got pictures at night. And I go right back to the same thing, introduce another buck into the area. And as soon as you do that, as soon as he's figured out that there's some competition, he's going to change his pattern a little bit. Even some of these drippers that are out there, they'll drip during the day as the temperatures rise as opposed to in the evening.
Right. That's a, if you didn't catch that, he said right there, if you introduce another buck, into the herd, it may force a nocturnal deer to come out in daylight hours. And that's a great tip. What do you think, Jay?
I think that's good. So Dean, what you're saying is I should be using some buck lure first. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, I mean, again, I use the combination of the two. I use the doe urine as a cover scent on my rubber boots. This morning, actually, I switched it up on them because we're getting really close. This is, like I said, we've got pictures of deer right on the point of between sparring and fighting. They're pushing at each other around pretty hard, and it's actually some pretty rare footage. But so I switched it up this morning, went with buck urine, and it was probably about 6 o'clock this morning, and I heard deer, coming off the field, but it sounded like there was a buck chasing the doe. Well, they turned around, and sure enough, that buck picked up on my it was a great story. Picked up on my rubber boots, which had buck urine on them, and he turned right around and he started following it backwards. He let the doe go, and I just one little pop on the grunt call, and he came within range, and now he's mine. So, but it's a great technique to use. It's like I said, it's very close to trapping.
Interesting. Now, what were you using before? You said you switched it up. What were you using before you changed over to the buck urine?
I was using doe as a cover scent.
Okay, doe as a cover scent. Okay.
Yep, until this cold snap came in. And of course, I shot this deer was probably, we shot 3 bucks. My wife is tagged out. All 3 bucks were shot within, I'd say, at least 10 yards of a mock scrape. That's working very, very well for us.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so we've covered the doe urine, we've covered the buck urine. You have 2 other scents that you make, the deer make, but you package it up and you collect it. What's the next scent we want to know about?
Actually, the next 2 are buckwood tarsal and doe and heat. The buckwood tarsal is probably one of our most aggressive scents. A little piece of somewhat useless information. The buck's tarsal gland does not have that real pungent, strong scent to it through the summer months. The tarsal gland actually secretes a clear, sticky type of liquid that is designed to absorb other smells. That's why if you shoot a buck real early in the bow season, it kind of has kind of a sweet kind of smell to it. And the hairs kind of stick together and they're kind of tight, but it's kind of a sweet type of smell, like almost like a butterscotch type of smell. But as the rut progresses and the testosterone in the buck increases, his urine becomes much more strong, and he'll urinate down those tarsal glands when he's hitting his scrape and utilizing the licking branch, and that tarsal gland becomes very, very pungent. And while using this scent, certainly in mock scrapes, that is indicative of a buck that is at the point where he's either going to try to steal the girl or he's going to fight for her. And so that in itself is a great scent to use, especially with this. There's a great call out there called the buck roar, and especially if you're rattling. I'm sure Dusty can testify that rattling does work. In New England, it works as well, but we're not as blessed as those guys out there because it's hard to see 30 or even 40 yards here, as opposed to having, ways where you can see.
Yeah, that's for sure. Ohio's got some land where you can rattle in a 500-yard buck. That's for sure. You can see across these corn and soybean fields for a country mile.
That's gotta be just seeing that would light me right up. What happens with us, Dusty, is most of the time these big guys will sneak in on the backside, and if it's not cold and crispy in the lead, if you can't hear them, a lot of times they'll lock up at 50 yards and they'll try to size up this other buck or try to figure out if they can steal that doe.
Yeah, it'd be tough for me to hunt where you're at for sure. Here we can actually, we can take that to the next level because we can watch them all the way to us. Sometimes here, getting into having a buck sent out, they get the smell of the buck and they come in and it seems like you get to that 75-yard point here. We're going to say that because it's a little farther here because they can see so far. So at the 75-yard point, they want to lock up and they seem to be looking very hard trying to find where this buck is at. But they know they heard the grunt call. They know they heard the antlers. But if you just turn your head, look away from them and bump your grunt call one more time, it seems like that's the icing on the cake right there because they can't resist a fight. It's just,
Well,
obviously the rut's going on, testosterone's high. There's a chance that there might be a hot doe there. They're not going to back down from that. If it's a big mature buck, they're coming.
You betcha. So it does work. Rattling does work unilaterally. It's just, you guys out there in New England, if you rattled a dozen times, you probably rattled a deer and you just didn't know it.
Right.
That's why I try to keep it on cold, crisp mornings, or where the temperatures are low enough where you can hear these guys walking around and pacing around, and always watch downwind. It's absolutely critical. I've been busted so many times. You get up and you scratch your neck, if you know what I mean, and they're sitting there waiting to see another buck, and they catch you in the tree stand. So it does work.
That's interesting that it's so tight there that 50 yards is 50 yards here is a shot.
Oh yeah,
it sounds like there it's thicket and nothing.
It's amazing, and so a lot of times, as Jason mentioned, the doe and heat as well, when they work together, we try to put the scent in a thicket where the deer really has to look for it. And another interesting point is if you've got I'll put my scent out 30 yards upwind from my stand. This eliminates that 50-yard gap. If I put that scent right out in front of me and that buck walks up at 50 yards to my right downwind, I can't get at him. But if my scent is 30 yards up to my left, upwind from my stand, if that buck drops off at 50 yards, I've got him at 20 in front of me.
Right, so, you got to be educated to hunt where you're at.
I never pretended to be smart. This is a lot of mistakes I've made.
Right, but, and that's, a lot of what you're telling us right here is what we like to hear on the Big Buck Registry. There's going to be somebody right there in your state that's going to take this advice and be able to call in and tell us a great story that they learned something from our podcast. And I can't be more happier that you're telling us that. And it's great information. What do you think, Jay?
I think it's fantastic. I'm sitting here taking notes like crazy.
Yeah, see, it's already working, that's we love that.
Exactly.
Well, there's been a lot of mistakes made over 35 years. I've tried to keep track of them, and I always tell folks, at seminars and stuff, if you take 5 things away from the lessons that I've learned, you're going to increase your odds of success tenfold. That's how I learned, was paying attention, and it's not that I'm any better than anybody else. It's just attention to detail, and this is my favorite way to deer hunt is using calls and using scents, because I find it to be the most enjoyable way for me to hunt.
That's excellent. It's that puts you on the next level and made you available to make the sense because you've learned so much in your woods time. And that's being Northwoods right there. It tells the story.
Yep.
Well, thank you. And Jason on this and Dusty, this last scent, and probably the most effective, that's responsible for shooting more deer than any is our doe and heat. Again, all of our products are 100% pure. They're undiluted. They're hand poured, hand capped, hand labeled. I've got a very patient, beautiful, loving wife that stands beside me here. She just picked up on deer hunting, and she's hot. The passion is there for her, which makes me very blessed. But back to the doe and heat deer lure, it's probably, as I said, very more responsible for it than any of our products for shooting more really good deer, and that's due to the diversity, and of course the buck's testosterone's through the roof, the does are in estrus, and what you're doing is you're putting out that virtual doe in heat and creating that picture for that buck to believe that there's a doe there who's ready to stand. And of course we can utilize that through drag rags, which are very effective. I've actually I've taken a buck on a dead run behind a doe, and as soon as he hit that line, he locked him up, and he made a big mistake, and he went into the freezer. I've had deer come up and lick my tree pegs. I've had wicks. I've had deer come from a very long, as far as I thought, maybe up to a quarter of a mile or 3/4 of a mile going through scrapes. On a drag rag. We have a heated scent dispersal unit. And if you could picture this, my wife and I designed it. It's made right here in the USA, right locally actually. and it keeps that scent warm at about 95 degrees when it's 20 degrees out. And we all know that you can smell hot coffee, you can't smell cold, you can't smell cold pizza or cold lasagna, but with my French heritage and my nose, I can smell venison lasagna from about 75 yards away.
Right.
So, especially the top. So, these deer just pick up on these heated up molecules they carry through the air at a great distance. And what an extremely effective tool to have in your arsenal when it's cold out and you're bow hunting or rifle hunting for that matter, to get a smoking hot whitetail close to you.
That's really cool. So just to recap some of the products, we've got doe, which is, you said you could use it at early season, and it's more or less a cover scent. Is that correct, Dean?
A cover scent and a social scent. The deer get very relaxed.
Okay. And the time on when you want to use that is early on.
Yeah, I would say right through, I'd use it right through the full season if you want to, because again, you can add doe and heat to that. An eyedropper of doe and heat into your doe ear, and it's going to indicate that a doe is progressing gradually through the rut. In other words, her estrogen level is increasing slowly.
Okay.
Which is very tempting to especially a young buck.
So I could take a bottle of the doe and heat, and I could, as I've used a little bit of it, some of the scent has gone down. I can then take some of the doe and heat and add some of that, and just so it's diluted at that point, and then slowly transfer.
Yeah, it's not diluted. It's probably a little stronger.
Okay.
And that's a really cool point is there's nothing else like it in the deer woods anywhere, because it's something that you basically fabricated, that your very own virtual deer. It's a concept that is completely mine. Nobody else has thought of it. Nobody else does it, and it's very effective. And the same thing with the buck urine. So you can kind of incorporate this over an entire deer season.
Okay. Now, when should I be using the buck lure? Is that
the buck urine? I would start, if you want to shoot a buck, I'd start using it the first part of September.
Okay.
I'd open up a mock scrape. And again, it's very critical when I talk about this. When you trap a coyote, you're wearing rubber boots, you're wearing rubber gloves, everything but a protective suit. Every bit of care that you take, especially when you're talking the licking branch, you've got the deer hitting that with his preorbital gland, his which are the glands in his eyes, his saliva. So he's got his nose touching everything that you're right into, and he can analyze that and break it down and say, hey, there's a guy here with blue jeans and rubber boots, and he probably could tell what color your underwear are. But, the point of the matter is you have to really pay attention and use a lot of scent control. Using any deer lure is not going to do you a darn bit of good. If you smell like diesel fuel, or if you've had your way with a can of Campbell's baked beans the night before.
Okay.
So again, it has to be very critical on your approach and doing your mock scrapes. And they know if a deer's been there or if you've been there, and your goal is to make that deer believe another deer was there.
Okay. So it's not just the scents that you're adding to your hunt. It's also the scents that you're taking away from your hunt. That'll make it. Okay. Got it. Do you have any recommendations on what we should do to kill the scents that would be found in a normal human life that the deer would not want to smell?
Well, again, it's, I try, probably my biggest thing is I love garlic. And, garlic is extremely porous. And so those kinds of foods, I'll try to be a little more forgiving. A lot of deer hunters are also ice fishermen. Of course, Dusty probably doesn't do a lot of ice fishing out there.
Not a whole lot.
Yeah, and the ice is pretty thin, and so most of the ice fishermen are probably extinct. So, we keep our clothes out in a little shed that's completely scent-free with pine boughs, cedar, what have you. And that's probably the most important thing. And of course, there's all these scent eliminators that are on the market today. I haven't experimented with some of these really high-tech ones. I can't say either way. I think if you just mind your P's and Q's, keep your hands clean, and keep your boots are absolutely critical, and keep your clothes clean. you're going to be ahead of a lot of people.
What do you, Dean? What do you do, Dean, for prepping your clothes? Do you keep them outside?
Absolutely. I've got probably 2 pairs of good boots. Some of them are, zero insulation. The next set is 1,200 milligrams of thin slate. And then lastly, if I get into the late rut, peak of the rut and post rut, where you're talking, your mornings are 5 to 10 degrees above zero. And that's with a wind, chill not included. So then we're up to 2,000 grams of thin slate in your rubber boots. And, so I usually have 2 or 3 different pairs of rubber boots that are set aside in an area that I know is not going to get contaminated. It's not necessary, but that's how I do it. I have at least 3 or 4 different, pairs of pants, shirts, t-shirts. And if you go out and you break a huge sweat, wash your clothes in scent-proof clothes wash, and get them out. If you've got a good storm coming, a rainstorm, set them right out there on the line, let them air dry. And again, it's a huge bonus. Is whitetail's defense mechanisms, its hearing, its eyes, and its nose, are all how this animal survives. And using calls and scents, you're using every one of these defense mechanisms to your advantage. You're using calls for their hearing. You're beating their nose with your scent and eyes. You don't move, good camouflage, cover and concealment. So if you utilize their super hopped up defense mechanisms, that's what I call them, you use those to your advantage, and you can. You're going to become a better hunter.
Gotcha. All right, let's go back to the buck tarsal. When should I introduce that into my hunt? About what time?
The buck with tarsal, I would say, just about any time. Again, you could start introducing a little bit into your buck urine, which would be indicative of a buck, his testosterone starting to increase, and we know that that's happening now because of the pictures. The deer are hooking trees. They're making natural scrapes. They're sparring. They're even, I question it, I think they were even fighting, to be honest with you.
Okay. So that's kind of a little bit later, just before the rut, it sounds like. Is that...
Yep. And so that's what I would start using, the pure buckwood tarsal. I would say, again, it's not so much a thermometer, but November 1st is a good time frame. The peak of the rut is typically around the 15th. It's going to be a slow rut this year, from my understanding, with the moon phases. But
okay. And then the doe and heat is an obvious choice, is when the bucks are in heat. That's when you want to start using doe and heat.
When the does come into heat, yes.
Okay.
And what that basically is, now I'm not saying you can't use it sooner,
right?
Because the young guys will come running in like a schoolboy to the prom, but if the girls are there, you might be creating a problem. So it's kind of, you're kind of taking a 50-50 shot. But right now, I think the does are probably, some of the does could be starting to come into heat. There's an indication that the bucks, there's not an indication. The bucks will breed anytime the doe will stand. So, I think it's not a bad idea to start introducing some of that, possibly right into the doe urine, or you could even use it coming up in the next week or two in preparation for the peak of the rut.
Gotcha. Okay. And I want to just touch back on mock scrapes. How important are mock scrapes? It sounds like from your description, it's very important for us to use a mock scrape to get everything going.
That's my trap.
Okay.
That is what I call my trap. I'm setting the trap instead of a whole set for a coyote. This is my set for a whitetail buck. It's in their DNA. This is what they do. They'll go. They'll make a scrape. They'll drive their interdigital glands into that dirt, which indicates who they are. They'll push that dirt back. They'll urinate in that scrape, and then they'll chew that branch above it and rub their glands in it. And while he's doing that, his eyes are going in the back of his head, and he's thinking about a pretty doe coming in. This is my version of Lifetime Channel. So that's exactly what he's thinking.
Okay.
And so that's how I'm setting it up. I'm kind of stepping in, playing Mother Nature there. Is it critical for anybody to do it? Absolutely not. This is my choice. I know I can bring a deer to me. And being fairly confident in doing that, this is the best way, in my opinion, to do it before the peak of the rut, because this is something that they do instinctively. And as soon as that buck hits that scrape and leaves his signpost, the next step is a doe's going to come in and urinate it because she thinks the buck is interested. So you're starting the entire process. Again, you're inserting a virtual deer into the deer woods to make another deer believe that there is or there was another deer there. In my opinion, if you want to shoot a buck early, and you don't know exactly where the bedding areas are, but you know where the travel areas are, what a great thing to do. What a way to increase your odds of success.
Right. Dustin, what other questions you have?
You know, I'm going to get into something, and I'm going to kind of backtrack real quick, Jay. I heard the word hookings. Put it on a hooking line, and you know this is northern. He's up north. Did you catch that, Jay?
I did. And Dean, what?
That's a southern slang. It's in the north.
Right. So Dean, you must have been
Southern New
exposed.
Hampshire.
There you go. I think, Dean, you must have been exposed to some southern terminology at some point.
No,
we just learned hooking last week.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always called them hookings. I call ground scrapes or scrapes, and a lot of people say, well, what's a hooking? That's when a tree hooks when a buck hooks a tree. Buck rubs, I guess, is another term for it, but I've always called it hooking. I don't know why.
That's interesting.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Hey, another quick thing here. Looking at, the Northwoods Common Sense webpage, tell us about the double barrel scent holster. Is that something that you come up with?
Yeah, my wife and I designed this product only because carrying scents are it's miserable. You can spill them, you open them up, you drop them, you break them, you stop, you want to put some lure down, you've got your muzzle loader on your shoulder, you can't hang on, it's just a mess. So what we did is we designed a way to be able to disperse scent as quickly, as easily as walking down the street and just stop it for a second and you can apply scent. It also, instead of running a drag rag, this works great because you walk with your spray bottle. What it is, it sits on your hip. It has a 2-inch steel clamp that hooks onto your belt. The darn thing is rugged. It's made out of like a Carhartt type material, like a duck material, and it has 2-ounce spray bottles with heavy-duty sprayers in it. It's not like something you're going to buy at a box store that's going to get clogged up. And, of course, these deer urines, 100% pure and undiluted, they've got a lot of I call it the magic stuff around floating in the bottom of it. It's not filtered. So you need to have a very high-end sprayer to get the product out. So you literally can hang on to your muzzle loader, reach down on your hip, and pull out a spray bottle, and you can spray a very fine mist. You can do a mock scrape very quickly. And again, if you have doe in one and buck in the other, you can do that change off, which makes it twice as effective. So I hate to use the pun common sense. It was just a common sense type of an idea, and then we found the right items and found the right products and put it together. And I just being a scent hunter, I wouldn't go in the woods without it. Even if you used it as a scent eliminator, just don't get the two confused.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, for sure.
Gotcha. So this is like instead of Thomas Paine's common sense, this is Dean Vanier's common sense. I like that.
That is. It's interesting.
It looks like that's pretty durable. The scent holster looks to be rugged, durable, and ready to use. It makes it real convenient to pull your scent out and apply it right from the hip. That's a great idea, and love the design.
Yeah, and with the expense of the products out there, I'm not saying just mine but anybody else's. It allows you're not spilling it, you're not just dumping it out, you're spraying these very fine molecules which get into the air a lot easier. You can do it in your tree stand. And you can even do it instead of a drag rag. Every 10 feet, just a little tiny spray, and it goes a long ways.
Yeah, that's real interesting. I like the concept of the being able to have it right there accessible without having to dig into your bag or your satchel or set your gun down. And, that's conveniency right at its most.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, it certainly is.
One of the questions, okay, this is the big question, Dean. You go into Dick's Sporting Goods and they have a wall of nothing but deer urine, and you're a smaller outfit. I don't see in a lot of the stores.
Right.
All these other guys are pretty big commercial type venues. What makes Northwoods Common Sense better than those guys?
Well, first of all, the common courtesy would tell one not to ever, put anybody else's down. But what I can say is if it's 100% pure, I've been getting it from the same whitetail farm for probably right around 27 years now. If it's 100% pure, if it's 100% undiluted, if it's 100% hand poured, hand labeled, hand capped, it's probably as good as mine.
Gotcha.
How's that?
That's really good. You know, what I like about your stuff is that you're a smaller outfit, and you said it yourself earlier that you can't keep up with the demand, to go really big. But I think that's a personal advantage for because I know where it's coming from, and I know that it's, I don't know. It's not as commercialized. It's like buying stuff that from a very large commercial vendor. I'd rather go buy, the local foods or something like that.
Well, and like I said before, it's, this is not about a monetary issue. This gives something, I'll give Welch's Gun Shop a huge plug, though. I was been carrying it for well over 20 years, and she was a believer, and she's sold, thousands of bottles, but what it does is it allows these mom and pop shops to compete with the big box stores, because you're getting 4 ounces for $20. You're not getting 1 ounce of, Blinkies or, whatever secret sauce. One guy came up to a trade show and he goes, "So does your dough and heat come from one deer that has a number on it?" And my wife goes, "Of course not." He goes, "Well, then it's not as good as that other stuff." And she looked at him, and I'm kind of watching, holding my tongue, and
right.
She goes, "If you were a buck, would you want to hear him or one doe?" He kind of just looked baffled. So I just shoot him on, but that was kind of a funny story, because I don't want to be like anybody else. This is something that I believe in, that I've done for so long, and I've got people sending me pictures on a daily basis. "This is the deer I shot. Thank you so much." And we'll send hats out. We'll give. Our product has a 2-year shelf life, but you won't find a bottle over a year old on the shelf. We'll give it away to the kids for youth days, this kind of stuff. We'll donate stuff to local raffles, and people shoot deer with it still. So
yep.
We prefer it that way, and we'll do it till we basically get tired of doing it.
All right.
Excellent.
I have a testimonial, Dean. And I want to tell you a little story about a deer hunt that I was on a couple of years ago. And it was when I was first introduced to Northwoods Common Sense. I took it with me, and we were in rifle season in New Hampshire, and it was about, mid-November-ish. And we had just had a small snowfall. We had about 2 inches that landed the night before. I'm a tracker. I love to get out and track, and it's one of my favorite ways to hunt deer. And I got, I cut a trail, and I wasn't seeing anything massive, but I could tell that there were some bucks in the area, and I was in an area where the deer normally go. I had my Remington 30-06. I had my Northwoods Common Sense doe urine covering on my boots. And, it was about 11 o'clock roughly, and I had, started moving through, and I had stopped because I had been on the trail for a little while, and I stopped and, I started to text my wife, actually. Sorry to bring in some of the smartphone technology and the technology field into the hunt, but I was actually texting my wife, just telling her I was okay.
Sure.
And as I'm texting her, I look up and I see a buck. I see antlers. I don't see the whole deer, but I see antlers on what I know to be a common doe trail. And he had his nose right to the ground. He didn't see me. I was still, and I was probably a good 80 yards away through the thick stuff, but I could see antlers and I could see the direction he was going. So I slowly got up behind him on the trail, and it was in some very thick area. It was a lot of small pine scrub brush, and I started moving from just very slowly behind him. I was hoping he was still there. I didn't know if he was or not. Eventually I got up to a tree and I sat down and I did some buck calls, and I got out some of my tarsal scent and I sprayed some in the air, and then I sprayed some doe urine a little bit later. And before you know it, I saw a nose pop through some thick pine scrub brush. Like, whoa, it caught me off guard. I didn't know if that deer was coming back, but that deer turned around and it came back, and it was waiting to see, and it stood silent. I mean, it was just waiting for more action, more something. So I'd spray again. And I wasn't particularly covered, but there was enough cover there, and I had the right scent. So he wasn't running off. He wasn't scared. And then I'd see him move a couple steps, and he was moving from my right to my left. And I'd just do a little grunt. I'd do a little spray, and I'd just do that. And this went on for 2.5 hours. And
wow.
Yeah, that's the thing. I learned so much on this hunt. But the point that I guess I'm trying to come across here is that deer never got spooked because of scent. He was more interested in the smell and the sounds than anything else.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah, he was probably wound pretty tight.
Yep. And eventually he paused for a good 30 minutes looking into the spot where I was. Still couldn't see anything, but eventually he took one more step. And I swear he was 10 yards away when I was on top of him. 10 yards away. I didn't even use my scope. I just pointed the gun, one shot, and he was down. And it turned out to be a pretty good 6-pointer. But what an intense hunt. I'm talking from 11 till about 2:30 in the afternoon, following this deer, playing with this deer.
Absolutely fantastic. And that's what I'm talking about. When you're experiencing something like this, even if you would have not shot that deer, you beat him completely.
I beat him.
And this is their job. They have one job, and that is to survive. I've had a deer that pitch black out, and I've had a deer come right up, a buck come right up to the back, almost to my neck, and I could hear him lip curling, almost probably no more than 3 feet away.
Yep.
Then when he realized I was human, I heard him coming. I never heard him leave. It got daylight and the deer was gone. But, I mean, that's how elusive these creatures are. And when you get a deer 10 yards, like you said, from you, and he's got those defense mechanisms up and working, and you beat him, that says a lot. That says a lot. It says a lot as far as your hunting skills are concerned, number one, and certainly that's a compliment as far as the product is concerned.
Absolutely. And there were 2 other times during that same season. One during when I was using my bow. I actually harvested another deer that year using the same scents. A small deer just got on the scent and walked right in 20 yards broadside, never saw me. And then there was another time when I was walking up a mountain, a doe had gotten scared from other hunters coming up from the other side of the mountain that was not part of my party. And I could have taken 2 more steps and touched this deer on the nose. And I was not hidden. I was not behind a tree. I was wide open, but she was coming down the trail and everything seemed fine to her. I literally could have reached out and touched her on the nose.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's how good this stuff is.
Yeah. Well, deer hunting it's the oldest sport known to mankind. It truly is. And I try to explain to people that when you teach somebody to hunt, you teach them life, death, honesty, integrity. I mean, the lessons that you teach, somebody, as far when it comes to deer hunting or any type of hunting or fishing for that matter, it's just a tremendous asset to have in their portfolio as being a human. It's a great sport, and certainly it's our obligation to keep it growing.
I agree. Dusty, do you have any final questions for Dean?
Dean, your product sounds very interesting. I would like for you to somehow get it to Ohio, and let's see if we can't get it set up out here. We got a lot of listeners in the area, in the state of Ohio, here at the Big Buck Registry, Big Buck Podcast, and I'm inviting you out personally to get your product pushed out this way, and I'll help you any way I can. And I think it's going to take us to the next level with, just from the way you're talking, to have a actual 100% product that, somebody has researched, as in yourself, and put the time in to figure out what works, what makes your hunt more successful. And that's very interesting to me.
Well, I certainly appreciate that, Dusty. And I would, I'll tell you what, Michelle and I would love to go out and visit with you folks out that way, and we'll even hand deliver it. So we might even, if we've got someplace where we can hang a tree stand out there someday, we'd love to go out and visit you guys.
That'd be awesome, for sure.
Very cool.
All right. Well, Jason could get me your contact information. And you have, you can pass, certainly Jason, feel free to pass on mine, and hopefully we all can get together. And Shelley makes one unbelievable venison lasagna. If you're ever out this way, Dusty, we'll be happy to hang a tree stand for you as well.
Very cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
Dean, I'd like to just wrap by you kind of telling us and our listeners and our Big Buck Registry contingent and the Chubby Tines contingent out in Ohio, how do we get a hold of you and how do we buy your products?
Well, you can go right online. It's called www.team-northwoods.com. And you can kind of go in there if you want. You can go ahead and if you're interested in some of the areas and some of the shows that we do, you can also Google Northwoods Common Sense or Dean Vanier Deer Lures. And certainly, those are probably the best way to contact me. The phone number for the business is right on there as well. So feel free to contact me through that route.
Okay. And this product is not easy to get. It's sold in limited areas, but you do have a website. You sell it online. But I swear, this is some of the best stuff I've ever used, and I've tried them all, hoping that some would work. And this is the only one that truly has stood the test of time with me as a hunter. So I just want to thank you, Dean, for putting together such a great product.
Well, thank you for all the kind words, and thank you for sharing your time with me. I think we're looking forward to it. I think the deer is really starting to pick up here. It's going to be 29 degrees out, and I'm going to be out there breathing that fresh air tomorrow morning. And both you guys, I wish you both a very successful deer season, and please stay in touch, because the next best thing about deer hunting is telling the story.
Absolutely.
That's correct.
We will definitely stay in. That's what we're all about here. We're protecting the interests of the deer hunter and the stories that go behind it. And we'll definitely be in touch with you, Dean. I just want to let you know, and I promised you I'd get you off the air so you could watch the Red Sox, because I'm going to do it too. They're winning as we speak.
All right. God bless, and everybody have a great hunting season. And Dusty, you stay in touch. I want to talk to you some more.
Will do. Sounds awesome.
All right, Jason. All right. Take care.
Take care, Dean.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh man, that was so good. I learned so much, and my hands are cramped up from taking so many notes, because I thought I knew some stuff about scents. I don't know anything.
It just blew my mind.
That guy is so smart when it comes to, well, if he's been spending 30 years doing it, I guess you kind of learn the stuff. But he thinks about it. I mean, he really thinks about it.
He gets into detail, and that's what we needed. That was informational for me, and I definitely have got some a few tips that I think I'm going to have to get out there and try out.
I agree, and I think if I heard correctly, Dean would really like to come see you.
I think so, and I'm gonna push, try to get him out here. That's something that I think these Buckeye buck hunters will be. They're going to see the next best thing, and it's been on the market for a good while, but just not in this area.
Right. It's
that's what it's all about. Introducing the next best thing. And I think that if I can, get Dean out this way and get his scent brought here,
yep,
I think it's going to make it.
It's a very small company compared to the ones that are out there.
That's the best kind, in my opinion.
I agree. I do the same thing when I buy food or whatever. I like the smaller companies. I like the smaller local companies. I know these guys aren't local to Ohio, but I can drive up to his shop right now and get some of this stuff. And I'm
a little jealous. I gotta admit, I'm jealous that you can drive there and pick this up right there, first class.
And I still have to drive an hour to get it because I can't get it locally. It's literally he pretty much stays within 20 miles of his home area. So that's further than where I live. I actually have to drive to go get it. and it's, I could order it. And sometimes I see them in Concord, New Hampshire, down at the Fish and Game Expo, but it's one time a year. So I typically, as always, as life is, I end up waiting too long and I got to take an hour drive. But when I have it, I'm ready, and it's always, it's never failed me.
I think it's worth an hour drive.
I agree. All right. So we got to figure out a way to get more of that into Ohio for you. And I'd love to see it in action down there to see if it's going to take on some of the big bucks that you have in Ohio. That would be cool.
Yeah, that definitely would be cool. And Dean, I welcome you here anytime, buddy.
Yep. All right. So thanks to Dean Vanier from Northwoods Common Sense for joining us on the show. And I think we're going to have him back on the show as the year develops, and we find out who's using this stuff and see how they're doing.
Right on. I think I'd like to get a couple hunters that actually are just like you and have tried the product out and get some testimonials right here live on the show.
I agree.
Hey, next exciting thing is who we got next week.
All right.
I am pumped up.
All right. Tell me who we got, Dusty.
We have Grant Woods from Growing Deer TV coming to the Big Buck Registry Big Buck Podcast.
That's awesome. I have been such a fan of these guys. I watch them on Twitter and Facebook. And it's just such a cool concept to have somebody that's studying the deer so closely.
I think that we are going to get educated with Grant Woods from Growing Deer TV. He's the man. He knows everything there is to know about deer.
I thought, we've had some really good educational shows lately. Today was one of them. This is going to be as good.
If you miss this next one, that's your own fault.
Yep, it's your own fault.
It's going to be the one to hear.
You miss it, it's your own fault. That's it.
That's right.
All right. So how can our callers reach you, Dusty, or our listeners reach you?
Facebook.com/Chubby Tines Outdoors. Right there on Facebook. Working on the ChubbyTinesOutdoors.com. It's not quite up and ready to roll yet, but I'm still working on it, so bear with me on that. How can the viewers get a hold of you, Jay, at the Big Buck Registry?
All right. Well, it's pretty easy. Actually, it's a very common theme. It's www.bigbuckregistry.com. That's our website. You can give us a call and let us know how you're doing in the field at 724-613-2825. You can visit us on Facebook, which is facebook.com/Big Buck Registry. Our Twitter handle is Big Buck Registry. And let's see, we're working on some YouTube stuff, trying to figure out how to convert podcasts into YouTube so you can actually listen to the podcast via YouTube. So, that's about it, man.
Awesome. I'm pumped up about next week.
Me
Dean,
too.
Thanks for coming on. And, folks, be safe out there. Good luck in the woods, and definitely report in. The number's there. Call us and let us know what's going on in the whitetail woods.
Very good. And the deer are definitely starting to show up on our pages. So
for sure,
keep them coming. Just send that in, email them. You can send an email to jay@bigbuckregistry.com, or you can just go right to the Facebook page and post them there, and we'll make sure we forward them to our main site. So this is Jay Scott from the Big Buck Registry, and you're
Dusty Phillips.
And we'll see you next time right here on the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast.
Can't wait.